divorced men and women of Reddit. What was the final straw? She didn't want to be married or a mom anymore. She also wanted to see other people. I showed her the door and she ran like a bat out of hell. Left me and the kids. All I had to do to get custody was keep paying her cell phone bill and car payment. This was pretty much all she cared about. Too damn bad that was not part of the divorce agreement. I stopped paying the day after the divorce was final. My mother did the same thing to me. Decided she didn't want to be a wife or mother anymore and left me with my dad. Best thing she ever did for me, honestly, but it sucked at the time. And for a few years after, I wish you and your kids nothing but the best. Finding plane tickets and hotel reservations to go meet some dude she had been chatting with online. Turns out the guy wasn't the fishing boat owning Alaskan adventurer he claimed. He turned out to be a part-time theater ticket taker for a movie theater, living in his mom's basement. I was going to get yelled at no matter what I did the laundry, get yelled at for not folding the towels correctly, let her do the laundry, get yelled at for not doing the laundry. The final straw was I was sent to the grocery store for French cut green beans. They had French style green beans and cut style green beans. I spent more time than I care to admit scrutinizing the green bean aisle. I finally realized that green beans are 40 cents and I'm not taking an A chewing over 40 cents. I bought both. My divorce was death by 1,000 paper cuts. The final straw was something a little different. I wanted to go to my local macro center and browse the afternoon away. She decided to go with me and sit in the car. As I'm wondering at the glory that is tech, I'm in the BYOPC department looking at a motherboard. This couple in their 20s walks up to the CPU case and the guy lays down this nerd stream about the latest AMD processor. She's listening, lets him finish his overview of thread counts and proceeds to bust his balls about it. But it was so sweet, so caring. It was the cutest thing I'd ever seen. She didn't understand but she loved him. And loved what a giant dork he was. It was in that moment I realized that I would never have that with the person I'm with, and even if I could find a way to get there with her I don't want it. I had struggled for a few years with all the excuses of not getting out. Oddly enough, that exchange between strangers was what did it for me. I've related this story on Reddit before, but my ex and I had separated over her cheating, and while I was considering options she shot the family dog. She didn't take the dog out back and give it a bowl of food and put it down. She was laying in the bed, looked over at the dog, and decided it needed to be dead. So she shot it right there in the bed next to her. After that she took everything she could out of the house, but left the blood-stained mattress. She decided she loved her girlfriend, who was also married, more than she loved me and our new baby. She left for the girlfriend, who subsequently left her husband and kids too. Both families ended up divorced. Both women lost the kids. They broke up a few months later. Schadenfreude. I didn't even know I was getting a divorce. I received the divorce papers in the mail. My ex was in the Navy at the time, about to retire. Her last duty station was in Michigan. We had been in the DC area for about 12 years before the last transfer came. So I stayed in DC as our home was almost paid off, and after 3 years she would be back to settle here for good. Awesome. One of us would travel back and forth once a month. We had been together for about 10 years before we got married. About 3 months before her retirement I get the papers from the state of Michigan. In 30 days you're divorced. Apparently she talked to a JAG officer about her retirement and he suggested she divorce me so she wouldn't have to split her retirement check with me. I paid all the bills at the DC house and most of the ones at the Michigan house. I didn't want to fight, so divorce we got. I did keep all of my stuff, house, car, motorcycle, and she didn't ask for any of my business. About 4 months later I get a call from her. I don't seem to have enough money to pay my bills lol. I told her not my problem. It felt really good. 4 years now and I get a call every now and then of her telling me she misses me and loves me and she can't pay her bills. I love when she asks me for money. Best no I can give in life. He got blind drunk at his birthday party and was trying to start fights, etc. So I got him home, had the presence of mind to hide the car keys in the dryer. He wanted to go back out, so tore the whole house apart looking for them. Threatened me with a kitchen knife when I wouldn't give up their location. So yeah, marriage, good times, lol. I have a female friend who constantly reminds me how her ex is a sweet sensitive fellow. When they were together he would grope her if I was near in some insane crap he sold as insecurity. Another time he held a knife to her eye as I was sitting next to her as some sort of reaction to me sitting next to her in a bar. She claims not to remember it lol. I have witnesses to the event. She still says it did not happen. Lost 2 friends on that good riddance. Human mating is not what people say it is. There were 2 things that stuck in my mind I just couldn't get past. But it was a lot of different things. I guess these 2 were the nails in the coffin. Birthday dinner for my father-in-law. 5 minutes before we are leaving for dinner my ex tells me, "Oh, dinner is just for our immediate family." I thought I was his family. It was very heartbreaking. I spent a month caring for my dying grandmother, one of the most treasured people in my life. I was exhausted and devastated by the time she passed. I don't even remember the conversation, just his response of, "I really need your support right now. Your grandma's death really messed me up." I realized I was alone in my marriage and that it wasn't ever going to change. I had to walk away for my own health and sanity. She threw my laptop on the floor, which caused the screen to break. I took the laptop into the bedroom to inspect it. I brought it back out to show it to her. She accused me of breaking the screen. Wasn't the first thing of mine she broke, nor the first time she made a ridiculous accusation. Husband was out of town on a business trip. I had a surgery scheduled for the same time. Had the surgery and there were complications. It was supposed to be a day surgery and I should have been home that evening. Ended up in the ICU for 2 days and the hospital for 4 more. My friend called my now ex-husband and told him that I almost died and was in ICU and he needed to come home. His reply, "Well, she didn't die so I'll be home when my business trip is over." After he got home and I got home from the hospital, he was nice enough to leave the hotel invoice on our dresser, a room with 2 occupants. While temporarily separated from my dad, my mom had to unexpectedly leave the city and left my brother and I with her elder sister. Super sweet lady with a heart of gold. My mom had tried to contact my father but wasn't able to get a hold of him and left a message at his work and verbally told his parents. My dad was pissed that we weren't left in his care and filed for divorce that week. He wanted a legal agreement that could be enforced in order to guarantee that he got the time with his kids that he felt he deserved. So his reason to file for divorce despite my parents trying to work things out at the time was that he thought a divorce would give him more time with his kids and on his own terms. That wasn't the long or short term outcome. The catch here is the reason my mom left town that week was in order to take care of my dad's sister and her kids. My aunt was suffering from depression and her husband had to take a work trip and was worried about leaving her alone with the kids. So my mom dropped everything and went there. My dad knew all of this as it was communicated to his parents. My aunt attempted suicide while my mom was there and luckily my mom was able to intervene and save her life. So my mom was saving my dad's sister's life while my dad was filing for divorce. This story has been corroborated by both my parents. It wasn't the final straw, but it was the first time divorce was mentioned. And it was the first time we admitted openly that we both wanted out. We were playing a D&D type board game and his character walked into a trap I'd set and took a massive amount of damage. He tried to institute his own version of take backsies. And when I refused because we were adults and he was cheating, he knocked the game board over and yelled, "That's it. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. I want a divorce." Sadly, we worked things out and continued on through more miserable years until I eventually called it quits due to his online dating and his controlling behavior. That game still has a special place in my heart, though. When she came home high on coke and attacked me in front of our toddler, I was scared to call the cops because I'm American and if cops get called to a domestic violence situation 9 times out of 10 the man gets arrested regardless of situation. But then she got body slammed by the police for trying to fight them and it was worth the risk just for that. When my ex started threatening me and physically assaulting me in front of my kid, he also threatened to kill me if I left, and I believed him. Fortunately, I suppose, he was also sleeping around and found the perfect woman. So then he filed for divorce on the fast track and actually gave me a pretty decent deal on the property settlement custody agreement. When it finally hit me that the impact of killing myself would be the push needed for my mother to die too, that my cat would get sent back to shelter, my 14-year-old dog would never have another forever family, and my mother's two cats would probably eat her body and be put down for it. Up until that point I was willing to put up with being cheated on. To this date I've learned of 5 different women, the emotional manipulation, not being allowed to have friends, and developed a particularly rough eating disorder. But that was all happening to me. I wasn't all that important in my own head, but nobody gets to hurt my mom. I've since recovered from the self-harm and eating disorder, gained about 15 points and am working towards another 5 by the end of the year, cut all contact and got a divorce and am in an amazing relationship with my childhood boyfriend. Plus now I have a happy little family of 3 whole cats and my dog will be 17 soon. I'll give you the last hours of my marriage. I believed I was a happily married guy. We were married for 5 years. No kids. Thank God. Monday morning my wife states she's going shopping with her best friend Joyo. I decide to get them my upgrade for my phone. I get to the Verizon and her best friend is there, getting her phone switched over to a new phone. I ask to look at her phone to decide on my next phone and she hands me her phone. At that exact second my wife sends her this text. Howdy girl, I'm going to meet Dave again. If hubby asks we went shopping and to an early movie. We're at the Days and if you want to join us. My blood instantly boiled. I walked out phone in hand and drove straight to the Days Inn. I get there, see her car and only one other car in the lot. This place is a motel. I find their room easily. I pulled out my phone, hit record and walked up to the door. I almost knocked but something said F it and I kicked the door in. I've never kicked a door before but it flew open so hard it closed itself again. Second kick broke that whole latch. I walk in, my wife screamed. I screamed a big wah back at her. Looked at the fear in Dave's face. I should mention that I do know Dave. Not well but know him. I am also much larger than he is. Anyways I tell her we're done and if she didn't walk away empty-handed I'd post this video for all to see. She walked away with nothing but her car and clothes. To Dave of course, who left her weeks later high and dry and moved away. She tried to reconcile but I was done. F her and the horse she rode in on. Things were kind of rough right from the beginning. She went from always wanting to have sex to wanting it. No, agreeing to it about once a week almost right after we got married. That wasn't so terrible, but simply a negative change most people would just deal with. The rest was like the frog who got slowly boiled to death. Things went south really fast when we tried to have a baby and I found out I was sterile. To make a long story short, she would berate me about my condition constantly and threaten to leave me. Anytime we were about to try some new treatment, she'd say if this doesn't work, we're getting divorced. In fact, my infertility was not something to happen to me. It was instead something that happened to her. If you follow me, the day I came home from my urologist with my diagnosis, I told her and started crying and went to hug her and she pushed me away, saying that we should probably just get divorced. Nonetheless I persisted, and we even tried marital therapy. I tried various treatments for my sterility, including something called a TEAS, which means they cut your sac open, cut your testicles open looking for sperm with a microscope. LSS. They found nothing. The recovery was painful, like being kicked in the balls for a week long. When I made that comparison, she said I feel like kicking you in the balls right now. Her family was just as bad. Her brother refused to speak or look at me. Her mother yelled at me that we should get an annulment. I should mention her parents are Bosnian immigrants, barely literate, but that is no excuse for being mean-spirited. And my ex and her brother were both educated, with master's degrees. Well, one day we were fighting and it just hit me. I just decided I couldn't take any more. I thought maybe I'll just take you up on that divorce. So I waited until she left to work, and I got my clothes and went to the bank to split our savings and went off to restart my life. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed the sun shining in on my car that afternoon when I left. About 3 years later I met a wonderful woman who accepted my condition. We're married and have an amazing baby daughter who was conceived by donor sperm. Getting a divorce was the best decision I ever made. I had to give her more than half of everything I had, but it was worth it. I wish I could get back the 3 years I wasted on her.